On a distant planet in a galaxy far away, there was a princess named Kivara. She was unlike most of her people, while the others around her had smooth, flawless features. Kivara had rough skin, mismatched eyes, and an unusual appearance that made her feel like an outsider. In her world, beauty was considered the most important thing. It was something that could decide whether one was loved, admired, or even respected. But Kivara was different. Her beauty, according to her people, was not something to be proud of. It left her feeling lonely and overlooked. Despite her royal status, Kivara didn't feel important. She felt like no one truly cared about her for who she was. Her subjects respected her because she was the princess, but none of them wanted to be close to her. Kivara had no friends who could talk to her as an equal. Her only comfort came from books and the stories she read about humans. Humans fascinated her. Unlike her own people, they valued emotions and connection. They didn't care about looks as much as they did about how people felt inside. Kivara had a secret wish that she kept hidden from everyone. She longed to feel what it was like to be truly loved, not for her position, but for who she was. She often dreamed about finding someone who would accept her, even though she was not seen as beautiful by her society. She imagined a humana, being so different from everyone around her, who could love her for the person she truly was. But it wasn't just about love. Kivara had another deep, hidden wish. She wanted to have a child. She had read stories about humans becoming parents, raising children together, and the bond that they shared. She wanted that for herself. She longed for the joy of motherhood, to feel the love between a parent and a child, something she had never experienced. Kivara believed that a child, especially one born from a union between her species and humans, would bring her the happiness she had been craving all her life. She thought that a human child might be the answer to all her loneliness. As the years passed, Kivara's loneliness grew. She continued to serve her people, ruling over them as a princess, but her heart was heavy. She often stood by the palace windows, gazing at the stars, wondering if there was a way to fulfill her wish. Could she ever meet a human who would want to be with her? Could she truly have a child, one who would make her feel complete? She didn't know, but the idea of having a family kept her going. One day, news came that a human diplomat would be visiting her planet. His name was Ethan. He was coming to negotiate a peace treaty with her people. When Kivara heard of his arrival, she didn't know what to think. The idea of meeting a human seemed so strange, yet exciting. She had always dreamed of meeting one, but never thought it would happen. She had read about their customs, their history, and how they valued love, family, and kindness. But could Ethan be anything like the humans she had read about? Kivara was curious. She knew it would be impossible for anyone to understand her feelings and desires without truly knowing her. But what if this human could? What if this was the chance she had been waiting for? Maybe, just maybe, Ethan would see her for who she was and not just as a princess. When Ethan finally arrived, Kivara couldn't help but feel nervous. She stood tall as she greeted him in the royal hall. Ethan was tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He didn't look at her like everyone else. He didn't see the imperfections that her people so often criticized. Instead, his eyes met hers with warmth and curiosity. For the first time, Kivara didn't feel like an outsider. Ethan treated her with respect, not because she was the princess, but because she was a person. He asked about her people, her world, and her thoughts. He listened to her stories with genuine interest, something that Kivara had rarely experienced. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, the feeling of being understood as they talked. Kivara shared her dreams and her hopes for the future. She spoke of her desire to have a child and how she thought a union with a human might bring her happiness. Ethan listened carefully. He didn't laugh or make fun of her. He didn't judge her. He simply nodded and said, "I understand." Those simple words made Kivara feel something she had never felt before: hope. Ethan didn't offer promises, but he didn't reject her either. He assured her that he would help her find a way to bring her dreams to life. Kivara was amazed at how easy it was to talk to him. For once, she wasn't hiding her true self. Ethan saw her as more than just a princess. He saw her as a woman with dreams, just like anyone else. And so, Kivara's journey began. The alien princess, who had once felt invisible, now had someone who truly saw her. As she spent more time with Ethan, she started to believe that her wish could come true. Maybe, just maybe, she could find the love and happiness she had always dreamed of. Kivara's life slowly started to change with the arrival of Ethan. At first, it was all about the treaty. But as the days passed, their conversations grew deeper. Ethan's gentle way of listening to her, the way he treated her like an equal, made Kivara feel things she had never felt before. She found herself looking forward to their talks, where she could share her thoughts and her dreams, knowing he would not judge her for them. Ethan saw Kivara in a way no one ever had. Didn't see the imperfections her people so often pointed out. Saw her strength, her intelligence, and the kindness in her heart. Ethan didn't understand everything about Kivara's world. He didn't know what it was like to be judged by appearance, but he could see her loneliness. He knew that behind her royal title, Kivara was just like anyone else, someone who wanted love and a family. It wasn't just her wish for a child that had moved him, it was the pain she carried silently, the longing in her eyes that no one had bothered to see. As time passed, Ethan became more determined to help her, to make her wish come true. One evening, after a long day of meetings and negotiations, Kivara invited Ethan to walk with her in the royal gardens. The night air was cool, and the stars above shone brightly. They walked silently for a while, until Kivara stopped by a small pond. The sound of the water was calming, and the sight of the stars reflected in the water made the moment feel peaceful. "Kivara," Ethan said softly, breaking the silence. "I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting a child. Can't promise you everything you want, but I can promise that I'll help you in any way I can. If you're sure this is what you want, I'll be here for you." Kivara looked up at him, her heart racing. She had never felt so understood. The trust she had in Ethan grew stronger with each passing day. There was something in his eyes, something that told her he wasn't just offering his help out of duty. He cared about her, not because she was the princess, but because of who she was inside. She smiled, the first real smile she had given in years. "I'm sure," Kivara said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "I've never been sure about anything before, but I'm sure now. Want to bring a child into this world, someone who will love me, no matter what I look like." Ethan nodded, his face serious. "I'll be with you every step of the way," he promised. As they continued to walk, a sense of peace settled over Kivara. She knew that this was the right decision, and for the first time in her life, she felt like her dreams were no longer just dreams. They were becoming a reality. In the days that followed, the two grew even closer. Ethan's support gave Kivara the strength to challenge her own doubts. She'd spent so much time feeling unworthy of love, but now she was learning that it wasn't her appearance that mattered, it was her heart. Her soul, the love she had to give. The first step in fulfilling her wish was difficult. Her people, especially the royal advisors, were not happy about her decision. The idea of a union between her and a human was unheard of. Many of them thought it was a disgrace, something that could harm the reputation of the royal family. But Kivara did not care. She had spent too long caring about what others thought of her to let their opinions stop her from living her truth. There were heated discussions in the royal halls. Some of the advisors argued fiercely against the idea, saying that it would ruin the princess's future and the future of her people. Others remained silent, unsure of what to say. Kivara, however, stood firm. She would not back down this time. She had waited too long for this moment, and she was not going to let anyone take it away from her. Ethan stood by her through it all. His belief in her never wavered, and that was what made Kivara even stronger. She realized that she didn't need the approval of others to be happy. She didn't need to fit into their perfect image of who she should be. All she needed was herself and the love that she shared with Ethan. One evening, after a particularly difficult meeting with the advisors, Kivara found herself in the royal garden again, staring at the stars. Ethan appeared beside her quietly. Watching her, they didn't speak at first. There was no need. They both understood what the other was feeling. "I know it's hard," Ethan said, after a long silence. "But you're stronger than you know. You've always been stronger than anyone gave you credit for." Shivara smiled softly. Maybe I've just been afraid of what could happen if I chose to follow my own heart. Ethan took her hand gently. It's never too late to make your own path, Kivara. And whatever happens, you won't be alone. With those words, Kivara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly believe that her dream was possible. She was no longer afraid of the future. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she had the support of the one person who saw her for who she truly was. As they walked back to the palace that night, Kivara felt a sense of peace that she had never known before. Ethan had become more than just a diplomat to her. He had become someone who believed in her, who saw her worth, and who would help her make her dream come true. And for the first time in her life, Kivara knew that happiness was no longer out of reach. This concludes part 2 of the story, continuing with a focus on Kivara and Ethan's deepening bond, and the days passed and Kivara's decision grew clearer in her heart. She had never felt so certain about anything in her life. With Ethan's support, her dream of having a child seemed more real. The fear of what others might think no longer held her back. She was ready to take the next step, no matter how difficult it might be. Shivara spent hours thinking about the future, imagining what it would be like to hold a child in her arms. She thought about the kind of parent she wanted to be and the kind of love she wanted to give. She dreamed of a life where she and Ethan could raise their child together, a life filled with laughter, love, and warmth. But reality quickly set in. The decision was not an easy one. The advisors and the royal council were not happy about Kivara's choice. The idea of a human joining with a princess from their world was unthinkable to them. Kivara knew it would not be an easy road, but she had made up her mind. She would not let anyone tell her how to live her life. One day, Kivara called Ethan to her private chambers. She had been thinking about their future together, and she knew it was time to discuss the next steps. As Ethan entered, Kivara looked up from where she sat by the window, her face serious. "Ethan," she began softly, "I know this won't be easy. We're going against everything my people believe in. I've heard the whispers, the criticisms. I know they don't understand, but I need to do this for myself. For us." Ethan walked over to her, his eyes full of understanding. "You don't have to explain yourself to me, Kivara. I believe in you. I know you've been carrying this burden for so long, and I'm here to help you make it a reality. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Kivara smiled, grateful for his words. "I'm afraid of what will happen if my people turn against me. I'm their princess. What if I lose everything? What if they banish me?" Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "No matter what happens, you're not alone. You have me, and we'll find a way to make it work. I believe in you, Kivara, and I believe in what we're doing." Into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his words. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly believe in their future together. She knew that with Ethan by her side, they could face anything. As the days went by, Kivara and Ethan began to prepare for the next step. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to make it work. Kivara's confidence grew as she realized that she didn't need the approval of others to be happy. Her happiness came from within. From the love she felt for Ethan and the hope she had for their future. One afternoon, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the vast landscape of Kivara's homeworld. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. Kivara turned to Ethan, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I'm ready. I've never been more ready for anything in my life." Ethan smiled, his hand resting on hers. "Then let's do this, Kivara. We'll make your wish come true." The journey ahead would be difficult. There would be many challenges, many obstacles to overcome. But Kivara knew, deep down, that she was on the right path. She had found someone who loved her for who she truly was, not for her title or her appearance. And together, they could create the family Kivara had always dreamed of. The first step in fulfilling Kivara's wish was to make it official. She and Ethan traveled to the royal council, where they would announce their decision to have a child together. Kivera's heart pounded as they walked into the grand hall. The eyes of her people upon them, as they stood before the council, Kivera took a deep breath and spoke. I know this may be difficult for many of you to accept, but I have made a decision. I wish to have a child with Ethan, a human. I know that it may be against our traditions, but I believe it is the right choice for me, for my happiness, for my future. There was a long silence in the hall. Council members exchanged looks, whispering among themselves. Kivera's heart beat loudly in her chest as she waited for their response. She could feel Ethan's presence beside her, his quiet support, giving her the strength to face this moment. Finally, the head of the council spoke. This is unprecedented. Goes against everything we've believed in for centuries. But we cannot deny the strength of your words, Kivera. You are our princess, and we respect your decision. However, understand that this choice may bring consequences. Your actions will be watched closely. Shivara nodded, feeling a mixture of relief. And fear, I understand, she said, but I am willing to face the consequences. This is my choice. The council was silent for a moment longer before the head of the council spoke again. Very well, princess. If this is your decision, we will not stand in your way. But know that there will be challenges ahead. Kivera smiled, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. She had made the first step. With Ethan by her side, she knew that she could face whatever came next. As they left the council hall, Ethan turned to her. You did it, Kivera. You've taken the first step toward making your dream come true. Kivera smiled, her heart filled with hope. And I couldn't have done it without you, Ethan. Together, they walked into the future, ready to face the challenges ahead, no matter what happened. Kivera knew that she had found the love and happiness she had always longed for. Kivera's decision to have a child with Ethan was no longer just a wish, it was a reality she was ready to face. But reality, as Kivera was quickly learning, was not easy. The approval of the council had not made her life any simpler. They had agreed not to stand in her way. It didn't mean her decision was accepted by everyone. As the news of Kivera's pregnancy spread across the kingdom, it sparked strong reactions. Some people in the palace and throughout the planet whispered behind her back, calling her choice a disgrace. How could their princess, someone of royal blood, decide to have a child with a human? They didn't understand the love and hope behind her decision. To them, it was nothing but an embarrassment to the royal family's legacy. Kivera's advisors were the first to express their concerns. The royal advisor, a wise but strict alien named Bolera, called Kivera into her chambers. One afternoon, Shivata had always respected Bolera, but she knew that today's conversation would not be easy. Princess Bolera began, her voice filled with worry. You are making a mistake. Your decision will ruin everything. Your people will not accept this union. You will lose your place in history. You will bring shame upon us all. Kivera stood tall, her eyes steady as she faced the older alien. She had heard these words before, from different people in the palace, but they did not shake her resolve. Understand your concerns, Bolera, Kivera said, her voice calm but firm. But I cannot live my life based on what others think of me. This child, this family is what I've always dreamed of. It is my choice, and I will not back down. Bolera's face softened for a moment. She could see the determination in Kivera's eyes, the same strength that had once made her a princess. Still, she couldn't hide the fear for the future. I fear you are making a choice that will cost you everything, princess, Bolera said quietly. You are breaking tradition, and I fear your people will never forgive you for it. Kivera did not respond immediately. She knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she was ready to face them. The dream of holding her child in her arms, the dream of finally experiencing the love and happiness she had longed for, was stronger than any fear. I am prepared to face whatever comes, Kivera said, her voice unwavering. And if my people cannot accept me for who I truly am, then that is their choice, not mine. Kivera's conversations with Bolera were just the beginning. As her pregnancy progressed, more and more people in the palace began to question her decision. Some of the more traditional council members spoke out openly against her, while others quietly distanced themselves from her. Kivera could feel the tension growing. The once welcoming halls of the palace now seemed cold and distant. She spent more and more time alone with Ethan, finding comfort in his unwavering support. Ethan never once wavered in his commitment to her. He loved her for who she was, not for her royal title or her appearance. To him, Kivara was perfect, just as she was. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Kivara and Ethan sat together in the royal gardens. The stars were bright above them, and the air was cool and calming. Kivara rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, grateful for his presence. He was the one person who had never judged her. He had always seen her for who she truly was, not for what others wanted her to be. "Ethan," Kivara said softly, "do you think I'm doing the right thing?" Ethan looked down at her, his eyes filled with warmth. "You're doing what feels right to you? That's all that matters. You deserve happiness, Kivara. You deserve to be loved." Kivara smiled, feeling the weight of her worries lift, if only for a moment. She had made her decision, and she had Ethan by her side. She didn't need anyone else's approval. "I want this child to be a symbol of hope," Kivara said, her voice soft but determined. "A symbol that love can come in many forms, even when it's different from what others expect. I want this child to know that it was born out of love, not fear or judgment." Ethan nodded, his heart full of pride. "And I'll be right here beside you, every step of the way." Despite their resolve, the difficulties didn't stop. The whispers continued. Some of Kivara's people even refused to acknowledge her presence when she entered public spaces. They saw her as a disgrace, a betrayal of their traditions. Kivara stood tall, knowing in her heart that she was doing the right thing. She was no longer afraid of what others thought. She was no longer afraid to be herself. Ethan, too, felt the sting of the criticism. He had grown to love Kivara, not because she was a princess, but because of the person she was. He couldn't understand how anyone could judge her so harshly. But he stood by her, offering his love and support whenever she needed it. One evening, Kivara sat alone in her chambers, looking out over the palace grounds. She could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she also felt a growing sense of peace. She knew that she was making the right choice, no matter how hard it was. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was one of the palace servants, bringing a message from the council. Kivara took the message, her heart pounding in her chest. As she opened it, she read the words carefully. It was a formal decree. The council was demanding that she cease her plans to have a child with Ethan. They had called it a betrayal of their royal bloodline and a threat to the future of their people. Kivara felt a wave of anger wash over her. But as she looked down at the letter, she realized something important. This was their decision, not hers. She had already made her choice. Kivara smiled to herself. She would not let anyone take away her happiness, no matter what the council said, no matter what anyone else thought. She knew in her heart that she was doing the right thing. She was going to be a mother, and nothing could take that away from her. This completes part 4 of the story, focusing on the struggles Kivara faces as she deals with judgment and criticism from her people, while remaining resolute in her decision to create a family with Ethan. Let me know if you'd like to continue or adjust anything. Ask ChatGPT. The days leading up to Kivara's labor were filled with a mix of emotions. She had faced so many challenges and criticisms, but now she was about to experience the one thing that had always been her dream: a child. She could feel the child growing inside her, a constant reminder of the love she had found in Ethan and the hope that her life would be different now. A new chapter was about to begin, one that she had always longed for. Ethan was there every step of the way, never once leaving her side. He had supported her through all the hard moments, when the weight of her decision seemed too heavy to carry. They had faced the judgment of the council, the whispers from the people, and even the doubts of some of Kivara's closest advisors. But nothing could break the bond they had formed. Nothing could change the love they shared. As Kivara entered the final days of her pregnancy, her excitement grew. She had spent years longing for this moment, and now it was so close. Her mind wandered to what life would be like with a child, raising it with Ethan, sharing their love with someone they could call their own. She imagined the small hands, the laughter, the joy of becoming a family. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. The day Kivara went into labor, the palace was filled with anticipation. News had spread quickly that the princess was about to give birth, and people in the palace waited anxiously for any updates. Despite the tension between Shivara and her people, there were those who secretly hoped for her happiness. Deep down, that Kivara's decision was brave, and that the love she shared with Ethan was something rare and special. Ethan was at Kivara's side as the labor began. He held her hand, offering words of comfort as she went through the pain. He had never been through something like this before, but he was determined to be there for her. He saw the strength in her, the way she fought through each wave of pain, and he admired her even more. She was not just a princess to him, she was the woman he loved. It's the woman who had chosen him, despite everything that could have stood in her way. Hours passed, and the pain became more intense. But Kivara was strong. She had faced so much in her life, and now with Ethan by her side, she was ready to face this, too. The nurses and doctors in the room worked quickly and efficiently, but it was Ethan's presence that gave her the most comfort. His calm voice and gentle touch helped her focus, helped her push through the pain. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the child was born. It was a boy, and he was perfect. Kivara's heart swelled with love the moment she held him in her arms. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she looked down at the tiny life she had brought into the world. Ethan stood beside her, his face filled with pride and love as he gazed at their child. The room was silent except for the soft cry of the baby and the sound of Kivara's heart beating faster than ever before. Kivara's hands trembled as she touched the soft skin of her son. She could hardly believe that this was real, that this child, this beautiful child, was finally here. All the struggles, all the doubts, all the criticisms she had faced, none of that mattered now. She had what she had always wanted, a family. She looked up at Ethan, her eyes filled with gratitude and love. "We did it," Shivara whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Ethan smiled, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "No, you did it, Kivara. You brought this beautiful little life into the world, and we're going to raise him together." The first time in a long time, Kivara felt a deep sense of peace. All the pain and heartache she had endured led to this moment. She had made the right decision, and now she could finally be happy. She knew that life would not always be easy. There would be challenges ahead, especially with the way some of her people still viewed her. But that didn't matter anymore. She had Ethan, she had her son, and that was all she needed. As the days passed, Shvera settled into her new role as a mother. The baby, whom they named Callan, brought so much joy into their lives. The once lonely and empty halls of the palace now echoed with laughter. Kivara found herself watching Ethan with Callan in his arms, marveling at the way he held their son with such love and tenderness. They spent hours together, just the three of them. Kivara would often sit by the window with Callan in her arms, gazing out at the stars, thinking about how far she had come. She had once felt so alone, so different, but now she had everything she had ever dreamed of. Family who loved her for who she was. A family she had created with her own choices, her own strength, and her own love. Ethan was by her side every day, supporting her as they learned how to care for their son together. Callan was a joyful baby, and Kivara couldn't help but smile. Every time she looked at him, it was her hope, her future, and the symbol of everything she had fought for. Kivara knew that there would always be those who would never understand her decision. There would always be whispers behind her back, always. Be judgment from those who couldn't see beyond their own beliefs. But she didn't care. She had found the one thing that mattered most, the love of her family, and with Ethan and Callan by her side, Kivara knew that she could face whatever challenges came her way. They had built something beautiful together, something no one could take away from them. Kivara had never imagined her life would turn out like this. There was once a time when she felt invisible, unwanted, and alone. But now, with Ethan by her side and their son Callan in her arms, everything had changed. She had found the happiness she had always longed for. It wasn't the kind of happiness she had expected, but it was more than she could have ever dreamed of. She was no longer the lonely princess. She was a mother, and her family was everything to her. Life in the palace slowly began to change. There were still whispers from the people, and some remained critical of Kivera's decision, but she was no longer afraid of their judgment. She had made the choice to live her life on her own terms, and nothing could take that away from her. Kalen, their little miracle, had become a symbol of love and change. He was a bridge between two worlds, her people and the humans. And he brought with him a new hope for the future. Chivara spent her days with Kalen, nurturing him and learning what it meant to be a mother. Ethan, too, was a constant presence in their lives, showing Kivara every day how much he loved their son. He was a wonderful father, and Kivara couldn't help but smile whenever she saw him holding Kalen, talking to him or making him laugh. The bond between them was strong, and Kivara knew that their little family was built on love, something she had never thought possible. One evening, as the sun began to set, Kivara and Ethan sat together on the balcony, watching the stars slowly fill the sky. Kalen was sleeping peacefully in his crib inside, and the quiet of the evening gave them a moment to reflect on the journey they had taken together. "I never thought I would be here," Kivara said, her voice soft. "I never imagined that my life would be like this." Ethan smiled, his eyes meeting hers. "But here we are, Chivara. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else." Chivara leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his love. "I never thought I would find someone who would understand me like you do. I spent so many years feeling like I didn't belong. But now with you, with Kalen, I feel like I've finally found where I'm meant to be." Ethan wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "You belong with us, Kivara. We're a family now, and that's all that matters." As the days went by, Chivara realized that things were slowly changing in the palace. Her people were still skeptical, but there were small signs of acceptance. More and more people began to visit her, not out of duty or obligation, but because they genuinely wanted to see her and Kalen. Some of the palace staff, who had once avoided her, now came to offer help, bringing her food, offering her advice, or simply spending time with her and Kalen. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Kivara knew that there would always be challenges ahead. She and Ethan would never be fully accepted by everyone. But that didn't matter anymore. They had each other, and they had Kalen. They had created something beautiful together, something no one could take away from them. One day, a letter arrived from the council. Chivara had expected it to be another request, another demand that she conform to their ways. But when she opened it, she was surprised to see that it was an invitation to a royal gathering, a celebration, to honor the birth of her son. The letter was signed by the council leaders themselves. Kivara stared at the letter in disbelief. The council finally accepted her choice. Had they finally realized that love and family were more important than tradition? Ethan, Kivara called, her voice filled with excitement. "You won't believe this?" Ethan came into the room, his face filled with curiosity. "What is it?" Kivara held up the letter, her hands shaking with joy. "It's from the council. They're inviting us to a celebration in honor of Kalen's birth. They want to welcome him into the royal family." Ethan smiled, a wide grin spreading across his face. "This is it, Kivara. This is the moment we've been waiting for." Kivara's heart swelled with emotion. She had always dreamed of being accepted, of being seen for who she truly was. And now, it seemed like that moment was finally here. It wasn't just a celebration of Kalen's birth. It was a celebration of their love, of their family, and of the new future they were creating together. The day of the celebration arrived, and the palace was filled with excitement. Kivara wore a beautiful dress, one that was elegant but simple, just like her. Ethan stood beside her, looking proud and happy as they entered the grand hall. People had gathered from all over the planet to celebrate, and as Kivara walked through the crowd, she felt something she had never felt before: acceptance. The council members stood at the front of the room, watching Kivara and Ethan with quiet interest. When Kivara approached, the head of the council stepped forward, a look of respect in his eyes. "Princess Kivara," he said, his voice steady, "we have seen the strength you possess, the love you share, and the hope you have brought to this kingdom. Today we celebrate not just the birth of your son, but the beginning of a new era for our people." Kivara's heart swelled with pride. She had done it. She had faced the challenges, the doubts, and the fears, and now she was standing here with her family, accepted by those who had once questioned her. It was more than she had ever hoped for. As the celebration continued, Kivara realized that her dream had come true. She had found love, she had created a family, and she had found her place in the world. And with Ethan and Callan by her side, she knew that nothing could stop her now.